Hi. Today's video I'm so excited about because I get to be what I am at my true core, and that's a hater. Hating things is my favorite pastime. Really, it is. I can't tell you the joy that it brings to me when I find out that I hate the same thing someone else hates. You know, I love it. Love it. So it's only right that I talk about all the flops from 2025. You know, last year I found some amazing books, some books that are going to be all-time favorites. However, 2025 also served me some slop. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Now, I'm not labeling this as the worst books that I read last year because honestly, if there ever is a time where I'm reading a book and I'm truly hating everything about it, or I'm not having a good time and the reading experience is just shit, I will DNF the book. I have gotten better over the years at DNFing books. I used to be someone who would force myself to complete a book regardless of how I was feeling, and I just simply don't have the time to waste anymore. These were more disappointments that I had in 2025, books that had a lot of potential, books that I had high hopes for, and you know, just like men, they let me down. They really did. They let me down. What can I say? And I'm not even giving you all of the books that disappointed me last year. I'm just giving you the ones that really stood out to me, the ones that pissed me off the most, the ones that I don't recommend to anyone. And if a book that you love and genuinely enjoyed is on this list, this video isn't for you, babe. This is not a safe space. I'm going to hurt your feelings, okay? So So if you want to avoid that, please click off the video. You do not have to listen to someone hating on a book that you love, okay? I don't want that for you. And I'm saying that because I love you. And the fact that you loved any of these books, love that journey for you. Keep that where it is, and that's away from this video, okay? That being said, let's get into the books. These books were all 2 stars and below. I'm gonna go in chronological order that I read them. The first 2-star, the first disappointment of the year was Our Infinite Fates. Yeah. And you know what? I should have known because it's YA, and me and YA, we're not girls. We're not girls. I'm here and she's there. You know what I mean? I'm just too old for this genre now. Unless a YA book is by an author that I know and love, I just need to stay away from YA. I actually listened to the audiobook of this as an ALC. It was one of the first times in my life that one of the reasons I didn't like the book was because I hated the audiobook. I did not like the narrator at all. I felt like the voice was very one-dimensional. There was no inflection in the narrator's voice that brought any sense of urgency or dictated any difference in emotions from the characters. It was very flat, very monotone. And that made me bored to tears, okay? Narrator and audiobook aside, let's talk about the actual content of this book, right? I can see aspects of this that people would eat up, especially as a YA book, because this is a YA fantasy where the 2 main characters, they are reincarnated in different lifetimes and they find each other in every lifetime, but one always kills the other. That eats. That plot eats. That sounds iconic, and that's one of the reasons why I thought I would like this, despite it being a YA. And I think if this was written as an adult fantasy, I would have eaten this shit up. But because it was YA, she flopped. It was one of those books where we're told over and over and over and over and over that these 2 characters are soulmates and they love each other so passionately and deeply. But because each chapter was a different time in their past that they were together, we only got moments between them, and we were told that they were in love. And we were told that they're soulmates, and we were told that they're passionate about each other. I didn't see a single spark of chemistry between these 2 characters whatsoever. That made a plot that sounds like it would be high stakes. Absolutely no stakes. Like, I couldn't care less about what was going to happen to these characters, genuinely. The pacing was at a snail's pace for something that I assumed was going to be high stakes given the plot. It was very repetitive. They kept killing each other over and over and over and over again, and no progress was made. I didn't see any growth from the characters. They didn't learn their lessons from the previous lifetimes. Like, you would think after living for thousands of centuries and being reincarnated in multiple lives that you would learn a thing or two, and yet, no. They haven't. The overarching plot of the story is that they are trying to figure out how to break this curse. And when you find out what exactly happened and how they ended up having this reincarnation curse over them and how to break it, girl, what? That's it? All of that for that? I think if I had read this, as a, I don't know, 15, 16-year-old, yeah, I would have eaten this up. I really would have. But at 32, no. A flop for me. Oh my God. Okay, the next book is, I think, the only 1 star that I gave out last year. And it's another YA. Are we shocked? No. And that's Boys with Sharp Teeth. Now, I fell for the cover. I'll admit it. That's my issue sometimes with books, is that I fall for the cover, and I need to stop doing that. I really do, because I fell for this beautiful cover. I mean, look at it. Okay, give it a moment. Let it sink in, because yeah, this cover is stunning. The contents of this book, garbage, babe. Yeah. I also listened to this audiobook, and this was another audiobook that I hated because the narrator sounded way too old to be voicing 17-year-olds. I really had high hopes for this one, but ultimately this felt like secret history Wattpad fanfiction. Now, before you come for me, Wattpad has produced some of the best fanfiction the world has ever seen, that the world has ever known. Okay? This is not to discredit Wattpad at all, but this does feel like something that you would find on Wattpad. So do with that information what you will. This was supposed to give gothic, dark academia, and it read more like Disney Channel was trying to compete against Gossip Girl at its peak. That's what it felt like to me. Very soap opera, very toxic friendships, very unserious. And again, the pacing, babe, slower than my dog on a unicycle, genuinely. So yeah, this was a flop. Next to Star Read of 2025, Mask of the Deer Woman. Now, you would think with a topic so important that is not talked about enough in this world, in our country, that the main character of this book would be a little serious about it. This book is about Carrie Starr. And she is the new marshal on a reservation. She is half Native American, half white. She had left the reservation as a kid, and now she's back as their marshal, and she's tasked with finding out what is going on and why all of these indigenous women on the reservation are missing. Where are these women? And that is a very real thing that still happens to this day on reservations with indigenous women. But Carrie Starr, babe, she's a mess. She's a train wreck. And I understand, you know, she lost her daughter a few years back in an accident. So it's very tragic. She's definitely still grappling with that major loss. She's handling that issue with drugs and alcohol. So why is it she's still working? Why is it she is hired to be the new marshal? Because I'm not kidding you, in nearly every scene where she's supposed to be working, interviewing people, researching, going in the field and trying to look for these missing women, why is she drunk or high in every single scene? Anytime she's talking to someone, she takes them as a threat if they have even a negative thought against her or a negative opinion. And I'm like, girl, that's the alcohol talking. Trying to solve an active investigation under the influence on a reservation. Like, girl, let's be serious here. Let's be serious. And if you think that was bad, when she finally confronts the bad guy, the villain, the reason behind all of this missing women, she's drunk. She can't even fight this man. Can't even escape this man because she's drunk. She could barely stand to defend herself. Yeah, so, hated her. 2 stars. I will say that the extra star that this got, because this would have been a 1 star based off of Carrie Starr alone, right? The extra star is for this book educating me and making light of the fact that there is a real epidemic in this world of missing indigenous women that I'm glad this shed a light on, because now I definitely want to do more research and educate myself further on that. That's the only reason why I got an extra star. Other than that, a flop. A true flop. Oof. Okay, so I lied when I said earlier that Boys with Sharp Teeth was the only 1 star I gave out in 2025. I gave out another 1 star to Pomona Afton Can So Solve a Murder. First of all, that title, girl, condense it. Like, what are we doing? I really like this premise, okay? Because it's about a Nepo baby who is the heiress to a grand hotel empire. The head of this family is the matriarch and Pomona Afton's grandmother. She states in her will that if her death is under any suspicious circumstances, they have to solve her murder and find out who killed her, or else no one gets an inheritance. No one gets a cent of the family empire. And honestly, iconic behavior. Truly. Truly, truly. So Pomona Afton, obviously, she's the granddaughter and takes it upon herself to try and solve what happened to her grandmother, not just because she wants the inheritance, but obviously she wants to figure out what happened to her grandma. However, Pomona felt like a caricature of the stereotypical ditzy rich heiress. She almost didn't feel like a real character. I honestly, at one point, felt like this book was satire because of how unserious this was. She was spoiled, self-centered, had zero self-awareness. Let me just read you my review. I said, the story felt entirely cliche, valid. The characters were surface level boring, real. The mystery plot was predictable and unenticing, truth. And the dialogue felt juvenile. These characters spoke like YA characters, but were pushing 30. And I stand by what I said. I really do. And of course, everything worked out perfectly, so cleanly. Don't piss me off. Don't waste my time. Honestly. You guys, okay, the next disappointing book of 2025, I was devastated that this book sucked. Devastated. No one in the world is more devastated than me that this book was a flop. Okay, no one. Because that book is Crash Test by Amy Adams. This is an F1 MM romance. This was supposed to be the perfect book for me. That's everything I want in a romance. F1, gay. What? The cover? Their pinkies touching? How could this have flopped? How could this have flopped? Let me tell you how. You have one racer in F1, the other racer in F2, and a forbidden romance. No one knows that these two are together. And the beginning of this book started off perfectly. It starts off with an accident, it hooks you in right away, and you are left wanting to know what the fuck is going on and what happened to these characters. But unfortunately, what does happen is an avalanche of disasters, one after the other. You have Travis, who is an F1, and Jacob, who is an F2. Jacob gets into a really bad accident. This is not a spoiler, it's in the summary. And in the first half of the book, you're following Travis's point of view, the driver that's an F1, and him trying to make it through the season, knowing that Jacob is in the hospital and is recovering from this huge crash and trying to hold it together. Again, no one knows that these two are together. So he's suffering in silence. And honestly, these two had very surface level conversations, and the foundation of the relationship that they formed was all pure physical attraction. They hardly ever talked about anything deeply, or at least in my opinion, meaningful enough to garner the passion and the attraction that they had towards each other, or this all-encompassing romance that we're supposed to believe that they have. Because again, every conversation they've had, which was not that many, by the way, really didn't reveal much about either character. Their conversations and interactions lacked any real depth for me to believe that they were into each other aside from the lust. Then we get into the second half of the book, and that's in Jacob's perspective, who's the F2 driver that had just been in the crash. And his perspective was honestly unbearable to read from because he has so much internalized homophobia that I genuinely was like, what are we doing here? And because of that, he was a complete and utter asshole to Travis, who, by the way, is at his bedside trying to console him and get him through this hard time, unable to tell Jacob's family that the reason why he's even there is because they're in love and not just really good friends, because Jacob's family doesn't know that he's gayer than Christmas. There wasn't a single redeeming quality about him, and what he did to Travis, if you read this, you know, unforgivable. There's just simply no way I could ever be with someone like that. And then Travis takes him back like there's nothing wrong. And I hate when authors do that. Make these characters grovel, make them work for this relationship. I mean, if you're really gonna make them end up with each other, even though I don't think that they should, make them work for it. Make it believable, you know? Yeah, and the ending, very unserious. This was a flop. And I'm, again, devastated that this was a flop. Okay, the next one, I'm not even going to really give too much explanation on. All you have to know is that I hated this book, okay? And that's Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Now listen, okay? I read through the entire Maple Hill series this year because I wanted to finally get to that series. Icebreaker was a reread. It was okay upon second reread. I finally got to this book. Garbage, hot garbage. And it's crazy because Daydream, the third book, the book that comes right after this, 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. How did this author give me every type of book? She gave me a 1-star read, a 3-star read, and a 5-star read. all in one series. Tell me how that happens. I have no idea. This book was hot garbage. You have these two characters who, by the way, I don't know why Hannah Grace chose to give Russ his own romance when there were a slew of other characters she could have chosen to do a romance for. Russ wasn't even important to be a prominent side character in the first book, so how he managed to sling his own romance, beyond me. Anyway, this book is a romance between these two college students at a summer camp, and all of that screams, not me. Not me, babe. College students already pushing it because I don't like YA, and I'm starting to not even really like new adult because even college is starting to be too young for me. And a summer camp with a bunch of children? No. Okay, now that I'm saying that, most of the reasons why I didn't like this book are more personal for me, but also I didn't care for either character. I thought Russ was too much of a golden retriever, and the female main character, Aurora, boring as hell. Like, I couldn't tell you a single personality or characteristic about either of these characters that stood out to me. I don't remember anything about this book, except for the fact that I was bored to tears the entire time. So, Wildfire, flop. The next book is a disappointment because it came as a recommendation from one of my favorite booktubers, Carrie Can Read. But I have noticed that there are some books that she recommends that I love, and there are some that I don't vibe with. This was one of them. And this book wasn't necessarily bad. In no shape or form was it the worst book I read. However, I thought because she recommended it, I was going to love this book. That was not the case, babe. That was simply not the case. No, that book is thrown in the dark. And this is a romantasy, but I'm using that term very loosely because to me, it reads more like cozy fantasy romance. It is more reminiscent of T. Kingfisher's fantasy romance than it is romantasy. And the reason why is because this book is about a son of a demon and I don't even know what she is. She's like a princess, not really a princess. She's more the daughter of a very prominent political figure, I think. I can't even remember because guess what? Didn't care about these characters. But they go on a quest to break some type of curse. The typical quest type of fantasy plot. Lots of subplots and side characters they meet along the way. And I think because I've already read a lot of T. Kingfisher's books that does this type of fantasy romance perfectly, that this one fell short to me. And again, because it came recommended, I did have a higher expectation for it. But I did think this was way too long. The pacing was incredibly slow. I got bored a lot. And the male main character, I don't even remember his name, but he's supposed to be like the son of a demon and very morally gray. But he's the type of male main character where his version of being morally gray is making fun of the female main character and bullying kids. I'm sorry, you're not a morally gray person. You're just an asshole. Again, characters that were in their late 20s, pushing 30s, that acted like children, acted like teenagers. What is that? I will say though, I did appreciate the fact that it was a slow burn romance. There wasn't anything, and I mean nothing, that happened between these two characters until maybe 80%, and even that was very little action. However, I do believe that this is the first book in a series, so I think the romance is going to take the course over 2 or 3 books. So I do appreciate that, you know, that it wasn't insta love and it wasn't insta lust and they weren't sucking face 20% in. I did appreciate the slow burn. I did appreciate that. However, that doesn't change the fact that it was a flop. The second to last flop, again, I'm going to go over this very quickly because it was so unmemorable, but that's Love's a Witch by Tricia O'Malley. This was a cozy, spooky season type of read that I read during October or November, I believe. That's the kind of vibe I wanted. I wanted cozy, I wanted spooky, I want romance. This story is about a witch. She comes from a line of witches and there's a curse on their family that they can only stay in one place for a year. Otherwise, their presence will wreak havoc on the area around them, and they end up moving back to their hometown where their grandma lives so that they can try and find a way to break the curse because they want to stay permanent in one place. They want to start building roots somewhere. And this is a romance between one of the sister witches and the mayor of the town. I wouldn't say it's second chance, but it's one of those small towns where everyone knows each other and they went to high school together. So they have known each other for a really long time. But because he's the mayor, he tells them, you guys gotta go. Your curse, I'm not gonna let it ruin this town because we all know the chaos that happens when any of you witches are here. So y'all gotta go. You need to leave. You need to leave my town. And honestly, I don't blame him Genuinely, I don't blame him, because at one point, because this witch is just coming to her magic because she turned 25 or something, she doesn't know how to control it. She doesn't know how to work her magic, right? Somehow her magic conjures up a dragon, like a real life dragon. And half of the people in the town don't know that magic exists. So when they see a magic dragon flying in the sky, the mayor has to come up with an elaborate PR scheme to make it seem like, oh yeah, this was intentional. It's part of our Winter Wonderland display or whatever. And yeah, it's causing problems. Ask me how many times that this witch tries to break the curse. Once. 70% into the book. What happens leading up to that 70%? Her drooling, frothing at the mouth over this man. That's it. If I wanted to read about a woman who was desperate for the attention of a man who did not want her anywhere near him, I would open up one of my journals from when I was in my 20s, okay? That is not what I wanted in this book, all right? When it actually came to them figuring out how to break the curse, I said this in my Q3 wrap up, I think, but it was giving me and my friends in 7th grade at a birthday party in the bathroom, repeating Bloody Mary until she showed up. Unserious. I will say that I loved everything else about this book. I loved the town. I loved her sisters. There was a council of witches that I loved. I loved the found family. I loved her friends. I loved the magical creatures. I loved everything else about this book except the two main characters. Don't come for me if you see me reading the second book in the series. Okay? I will just say that. But this, a flop. Okay, the last flop that we're going to talk about before we get into the DNFs. I just talked about this in my Q4 wrap up, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake. All I'm going to say is I was left starving because this served me nothing. This served me slop. Really great discussions and conversations on misogyny and the wage gap between men and women, trad wives, feminism, all of that. And yet this was so fucking boring. And then it hurls cannibalism at you. No. All of Olivia Blake's recent releases have just completely missed the mark for me personally. So I genuinely don't know if I'm going to be reading her from now on. I really don't, because I have not been connecting with any of her books lately. Yeah, Girl Dinner, slop, a flop. Oh my God, okay, Dr. Seuss. Okay, DNFs, anyone? Are we ready to go? All right, now let me explain first what I consider to be a DNF, because I'm a very big mood reader. All right, we know this about me. I don't consider a book a DNF unless I'm at least 20% into the book. If I pick up a book and I read the first chapter and I say, oh, you know what? I'm not really in the mood for something very emotional like this. Or, you know, I don't really want anything funny or like satire right now. And I put that book down for one reason or another. I don't consider that a DNF, because in my opinion, I don't think that I gave that book enough of a chance to make an impression on me and to really dictate whether or not it's a book that I'm going to put down. 20% is my benchmark for, at that point, I am invested in the plot. I have not connected with the characters at that point. I'm familiar with the writing style and I know the pace of the book. So I wait until 20% to count that as an actual DNF, because at that point, if I don't like the book, I really don't like the book and I will not enjoy the rest of the 80% of the book. All right, I have a whole spreadsheet here on my DNFs. The first book that I DNF'd on January 15th of 2025 was All the Missing Pieces by Catherine Cowles. Catherine Cowles is an author who's gaining a lot of popularity for her romantic suspense books. If you can see right here, her Tattered and Torn series was the first romantic suspense series from hers that I read, and I have read 2 series of hers after that. In my honest opinion, once you've read one series of hers, you've read all of them, because at one point I read so many of her books that I was mixing up the characters and the plots because they all felt like I was reading the same book. I think I was expecting something different from this book because this was the first book that came out as traditionally published, and it had to do with a girl who had a true crime podcast and a sheriff in a small town, and it was their romance. And honestly, when their first interaction together, I was like, I have read this book before. I have read these exact 2 characters in a Catherine Cowles book before. Her books are very formulaic. There's banter between the characters, drama, then they end up falling in love. And then in the third act breakup, there's always a kidnapping attempt or something dangerous happens to the characters. And I know they're all going to end up with a happily ever after. And I think if I want a comfort read like that, I'll go for her books, but expecting something new and different, no. And I didn't want to waste my time reading another type of her book. I think if this was your first book from her, you would really enjoy it because you would be new to her writing style and the way that she tells her stories. But for me, this was like, I think the 10th book I'd read from her at this point. I knew it was going to end up exactly the same as all her other books. So I DNF this at 20% in. Ooh, okay, the next DNF is going to be a bit controversial because I know a lot of people love this author and her books, but this one, girl, nope, no, not for me. Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. I DNF this 41% in on February 6th of last year. And the reason why I even picked this up to begin with was because I had heard through the grapevine that this book has a child-free by choice couple. And you guys know me, I have a whole series on that. So I was excited to have a new popular author on that list for me. But oh my fucking God, I could not stand the main character of this book. I truly could not stand her. This book is about a married couple, Sarah and Caleb, and they are going through some marital issues. These two have been dating since they were 15 and married since they were 18. Okay, sure. Caleb comes from money. We're talking wealthy family. And he starts his own company from the money in his trust fund, as a Nepo baby does. So he's getting that off the ground, and then Sarah's mom passes away. And this is years ago. I think in part because of her grief, but also because Caleb made so much money and she was comfortable with her life. She did not pursue anything. I think she dropped out of college and didn't continue. She didn't get a job. So she just stays at home being a stay-at-home housewife with no kids. And honestly, my dream life. I would love that. And she does have charity work that she participates in, but she doesn't have anything really concrete in her life. There's nothing in her life that she has done that she's really proud of. And she blames Caleb for enabling her to not do anything. Okay. The book starts off with this huge gala that she's put together for her foundation, using Caleb's money and connections to put this whole thing together, mind you. And then she gets mad at him for donating money and raising the money that she needs for the foundation. And then they get into a fight. And when he finally tells her how he feels, how unhappy he is, she completely shuts him down, interrupts him, and says, okay, well, we're going to go camping on a 7-day couples retreat and figure it out. And of course, Caleb being Caleb, he goes along with it because he doesn't want to make her unhappy. I need to read my actual review here because I really go into it. Once they get into the parking lot of the camping site, he looks at her in the car and he says that he loves her and he'll do anything for her. And if this is what it takes to get things better, he'll do it. And she gets mad at him being like, this is supposed to be for us and you're making me seem like I'm the problem and that we're only here for me. Bitch, don't piss me off. Not you out here making me defend the man. I'm getting heated. He didn't want to go on this 7-day camping couples retreat. Who the fuck wants to do that? I don't. I want to go to couples therapy like any other fucking normal human being. It's not like you both decided to do this together. You told him that we're doing this. He didn't have a choice. You dragged his ass to this campsite. And then for this camping trip, he downloaded books on her Kindle and brought it for her. You know what? Again, not me out here defending the man. He's really supportive and kind to her, and she's just insecure and immature. She hasn't grown at all since her mom passed away, and she hasn't done anything with her life. But how is that his problem? I get that there is some blame to him for completely enabling her in their marriage and not pushing her to do something. But if you don't know that anything's wrong, and if she didn't say anything about how unhappy she is, how the fuck is he supposed to read her mind? The miscommunication in this marriage, babe. You should not be going to a camping retreat. You need to be going to couples therapy. And yeah, I also didn't really like Caleb completely because he let her walk all over him. Anytime that he wanted to express how he feels, she would barrel over whatever he was saying and just steamroll over him. And he didn't have a backbone. I'm sorry. I mean, I think they should have gotten divorced, genuinely. The only thing I did appreciate about them was the fact that they were adamant that neither of them wanted kids and that they didn't want that for their life. Love that. Love that. Love that. At least they're self-aware about that neither of them should be parents, because honestly, they shouldn't even be married. So yeah, DNF that 41% in. Mind you, I had so much to say for that being 41% in. Okay, the next DNF, okay, hear me out. I love dark romance, okay? The next DNF was Fear Me, Love Me by Lilith Vincent, and I DNF'd this on March 14th, 27% in. Listen, this cover, atrocious. No. But I mean, I love dark romance and I want more darker romances, and I heard this one was really, really dark. And it was. And don't get me wrong, I loved the dark romance aspect of it. I didn't mind how much of a dark alpha hole he was, because that's what you get in a dark romance. Like, I know what I'm getting in a dark romance, okay? I didn't mind the age gap. Again, dark romance, I'm used to that. I always expect the worst in dark romance because they're dark romances. None of that bothered me at all. What did do it for me was the excessive breeding kink. Like, I understand the breeding kink, and I'm not here to kink shame anyone. I totally get the breeding kink, but the only thought in this man's head was to breed her. Literally, there wasn't a single other thought that he had in his mind but that. And to read that over and over and over again, I was like, okay, dude, we get it. We get it. We know. I don't have any triggers, like, at all. Like, I've read some dark shit that I haven't even put on Goodreads because no one needs to know that I've read that shit, you know? I was just so annoyed. I was like, okay, dude, like, can we move on? Something else? Anything else? Yeah. So I DNF'd that. Ooh, the next book I DNF'd was Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. Ooh, on April 8th, 22% in. At 100 pages. At first, this was going to be just a soft DNF, and I was eventually going to pick it up again. I don't know when, but, you know, when I first put it down, I thought, you know, I'm just not in the mood for this right now, but I might pick it up later. Now, I don't think I'll ever pick up this book, okay? Given what I've said about Olivia Blake before. Another book that I just wasn't connecting with her. Her writing is very, like, the first paragraph of this book is half a page long. She goes on a lot of tangents. And I read her previous books before, so I know this about her writing. And I just didn't have the mental capacity at that moment reading this book to take that sort of long-winded stream of consciousness kind of writing style that she has. It can get very over-exaggerated, over-explanatory. Sometimes she'll, you know, drag you along and I'm like, just get to the point, girl. Just tell us what you're trying to say. You don't have to dilly-dally your way to the point. Just get to it. You know? And I guess there's supposed to be some sort of magic element to this book, but I'm 100 pages in and I don't even know what is going on. We haven't even gotten to anything important happening in the plot yet. The first 100 pages is just character introduction. Literally, that's it. Yeah, I don't think I'll be picking this up anymore. The next DNF I have is Not Safe for Work by Nisha J. Tooley. I DNF this on May 1st, 25% in. And I really wanted to like this. I really wanted to like this, you guys, because it is an enemies to lovers office romance. And this had really great commentary and representation of being a woman of color in a male-dominated company and trying to break the glass ceiling. So I did enjoy that part, but everything else, the romance, it was trope after trope after trope after trope after trope. I was like, did the author write the book and then include the tropes, or did she have a list of tropes and write the book around that? Because that's what it felt like, truly. And it got to a point where it was very cringy and cliche, because it's like, because I read these tropes over and over and over again in other romance books, I already knew what the characters were going to say. I knew how they were going to react. I knew what they were thinking and what they were going to do, because it's like every other enemies to lovers office romance out there. Like, there's nothing special about this one. DNF'd it. Okay, the next DNF is actually a series DNF, and I don't even remember the name of this series. Is it the Fallen Gods series? The first book is God Killers by Hannah Craner. I actually read the first book. I read the entirety of the first book. It was okay. I didn't hate it. It wasn't the worst fantasy book I've ever read, but I am not continuing on with the series because there wasn't anything intriguing or enticing enough for me to feel any sort of connection or urgency to pick up the next book. So yeah, I'm DNFing the series. Okay, the next DNF I think is going to be a bit controversial too, because I know people love this author and this author's books. But August 21st, 23% in, I DNF'd The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. And I've read, God, what did I read before? Vampires of El Norte. I DNF'd that book too. Because, I don't know, I think this author captures the dark, gothic, eerie atmosphere perfectly. Perfectly. I love the settings of this author's books and the way that they describe their worlds. But everything else, unfortunately, boring. The scenes, the horror scenes and some of the action scenes in this book were interesting to me, yeah, but everything else is boring to me. The characters were a bit flat for me. The story itself, I didn't really have any interest in. So in no way is this book bad, and in no way is this author's writing bad at all. It is definitely a me problem. I'm just not connecting to this author's books, but objectively, this author's writing is really fantastic, and I can see why a lot of people love her books, but they just aren't for me. Oh my God. Okay, wait. This one I fear is the most controversial book on this list because when this romance came out, everyone was talking about it and everyone loves this romance. I am definitely the outlier in this one. And honestly, since everyone loves it, I think I might pick this up again and give it a second chance. It might have just been the wrong book at the wrong time for me, but It's Different This Time by Josh Richards. And I'm devastated about it because this author is Filipina and the main character is Filipina. I really want to go back and it might have been a me problem, but I'm sorry, the main character, I couldn't stand her. And I DNF this 58% in, you guys. 58% in. I DNF this book. I didn't care for either character. I don't know. I just thought the female main character was very prickly and held a lot of things against the male main character. I don't know. There was just something about her that I wasn't connecting to. The male main character is one of those MMCs that's written only for the sake to love the female main character. To me, he didn't have any other personality other than the fact that he was in love with the female main character. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was nothing substantial or anything really meaningful or anything deep about him that made him stand on his own as an individual in this book that didn't revolve around the female main character. Again, maybe I'll pick it up one day to give it a second go and see if maybe it was just wrong book, wrong time. But I DNF this pretty far in, so I don't know. Those are all of the flops and DNFs I had for 2025. My favorite books of the year will be coming very soon. I just wanted to rant and vent and talk shit today. So I wanted to get this video out first because I know for a fact that my favorites video is going to be a long video, because despite the fact that there were bad books that I read and DNFs, I had a lot more books that I loved and really enjoyed than I did books that I didn't. And I think that's a win. I hope you guys enjoyed me losing my mind and my cool about these books. Let me know if you also didn't like any of the books that I mentioned, or if you DNF'd some of these books. If you did like any of them, keep that to yourself. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.